When it comes to LEGO, not all countries are created equal. Some get small changes like different set numbers. Others get medium changes like different theme names and lore. But a few get huge changes, like getting their very own brick system. Along with all the exclusives, LEGO's made a lot of changes around the world, but the country with the most by far is China. The first thing worth knowing is that back in 2019, when LEGO first started releasing Chinese New Year sets, they weren't available anywhere outside of East Asia. If you lived in the US, the UK, Australia, anywhere that wasn't East Asia, you just couldn't buy them. And the community's reaction was pretty bad. People were genuinely upset, and the crazy part is that LEGO actually listened. By May of 2019, they reversed the policy and started selling the sets to the whole world. But that wasn't the only time China got something nobody else did. In January of 2021, LEGO ran a gift with purchase promotion in their Chinese stores. And to get it, you had to spend the equivalent of over $300 in a single order. Not only was this promotion only in China, but the money threshold was higher than basically anything LEGO was doing in other countries at the same time. So it wasn't just exclusive, it was expensive exclusive. But then there's the story of LEGO Life. LEGO Life was a social media app that LEGO made so people could share their LEGO builds all over the world. In every other country, it's LEGO Life. But in China, the app doesn't even exist. LEGO had to partner with Tencent and build a completely different app from scratch to satisfy China's laws. And LEGO's own CEO confirmed this publicly, so it's 100% true. China having its own version of an app is one thing, but in the 1970s, Italy got its own version of the actual brick. LEGO made a completely separate system called Minitalia, which was only sold in Italy. And if you didn't know what you were looking at, you'd probably think it was a knockoff. The bricks used a different, lower quality plastic than standard LEGO, HIPS instead of ABS. They also had an X-shaped underside instead of the normal tube, and didn't have the LEGO logo on them anywhere. That last part is why so many of them got thrown away. Parents and kids assumed they were cheap fakes and didn't keep them. LEGO made them like this so they could sell bricks to Italy for cheaper, but the result was a version of their own product that looked fake. But Italy isn't even the only country where this happened. Japan had almost the exact same thing happening at the same time. From 1970 to 1978, LEGO made a line called Olo exclusively for the Japanese market. These were pretty much identical to Minitalia bricks, but they used the higher quality ABS plastic instead, and they were reportedly sold in rural areas while regular LEGO was sold in major cities like Tokyo. So Japan had this weird two-tier system, where people who lived in big cities got real LEGO, and people who lived in small towns didn't. But Olo bricks weren't the only thing Japan got that no one else did. From 1997 to 2004, a Japanese candy company called Kabaya partnered with LEGO to sell miniature sets packaged inside boxes of candy. They sold sets from Bionicle, Rock Raiders, Life on Mars, Ninja, Star Wars, and more. And they were all sold in candy wrappers. Some of these even had exclusive content that never showed up anywhere else. The Rock Raiders Kabaya 4-pack came with a Chief minifigure that's never been in any other LEGO product anywhere. The only way to get him was to buy Japanese candy in the early 2000s. But while Japan was getting exclusive candy sets, Europe and America were getting the same sets with completely different lore behind them. In 1999, LEGO released a theme called Slicers in Europe. All 8 characters lived on the same planet, and they were split into different biomes. But in the US and Canada, the exact same sets were sold as Throwbots, and in this version, each character lived on their own separate planet. There were different character names, different backstories, different box art, all of it was different. Fire became Torch, Sub became Scuba, Amazon became Jungle, even the illustrations were different. Enemies in the Throwbots version had their faces and eyes removed compared to the Slicer versions. American and European kids in 1999 were playing with the exact same toys, but at the same time, everything about them was completely different, and no one even knew it. But the 12-volt electric train era is a big one, because American LEGO fans never got it at all, and they're still mad about it. The 12-volt train system ran from 1969 to 1991, and was a Europe exclusive the entire time. Sets like the Intercity Train, the High-Speed Express, none of them were ever sold in American stores. The Blue Track version was even more exclusive, only being available in continental Europe, not even the UK or Australia. The reason comes down to LEGO's licensing agreement with Samsonite, who was manufacturing LEGO products for North America at the time. After that arrangement ended in the early 1970s, train sales in the US essentially stopped until 1980, when a limited 4.5-volt line popped up. The 12-volt system, which needed special track conductors, never made the jump. So there's a whole era of LEGO trains that an entire continent just never experienced. But even European buyers weren't all getting the same train experience, because from 1977 through the mid-1980s, LEGO train sets came with sticker sheets that had the logos of different European railway companies. DB for Germany, SNCF for France, OBB for Austria, the list goes on. The box art always showed the German DB stickers applied by default, but if you bought your train set in Finland, you got Finnish railway stickers, Switzerland got Swiss ones, and every other country got their corresponding logo. It's the only time in LEGO history where the decoration of a set changed based on where you bought it. Now, I mentioned Samsonite earlier, and because of them, the Canadian LEGO situation is genuinely its own chapter in LEGO history. From 1962 to 1990, Canadians buying LEGO were buying sets manufactured by Samsonite under a license. And these sets weren't always identical to what the rest of the world was getting. Sometimes the parts were slightly different, sets were in blister packs instead of boxes, and everything had French and English text because of Canadian language laws. So for almost 30 years, Canadian kids were building with a local version of LEGO that was basically the same, but technically different. And because Canada was stuck with Samsonite, it got left behind when updates hit. In 1986, the rest of the world switched from 9-stud road plates to 7-stud road plates with a bike lane. But Canada kept the 9-stud road plates until 1989, 3 years after everyone else switched. Even after the Samsonite situation got sorted out, the US still wasn't getting the same LEGO experience as Europe. From roughly 1970 to 1980, the same exact set was sold with a completely different number in the US versus Europe. The London bus was set 384 in Europe and 760 in the US. Same bus, same parts, different number on the box. LEGO never officially explained why, and it's caused decades of confusion for collectors trying to catalog these things. And at the same time, while the rest of the world was buying Technic, Americans were buying something called Expert Builder. Every other market got the Technic branding, but the US got Expert Builder, and kept it well into the mid-80s before LEGO finally gave up and changed it to Technic. If you grew up in the US during that era and someone mentioned Technic, you might not have even known what they were talking about. But when Bionicle launched in 2001, European sets came with mini CDs that had game content on them. People in America didn't get anything like this for most of the early days of Bionicle. The Toa Metru sets from 2004 all had character-specific promo CDs in their European canisters, with no US equivalent. Since then, collectors have documented the differences at an obsessive level of detail. Different item numbers on European versus US canisters, black and white versus color disc variants, and which specific characters got CDs in which markets. Even the Bionicle collectible mask packs from 2001 were different depending on where you bought them. North America got set 8525, which came in a box, but the rest of the world got set 8530, which came in a poly bag. Same masks, different set numbers, different packaging. It's only right though. After that whole fiasco with the CDs, we needed something cool that other people weren't gonna get. But the changes with Bionicles still aren't done. LEGO managed to tell the same story in the complete wrong order depending on which continent you lived in. The 2005 wave had heroes, the Toa Hordeca, and villains, the Viscerac. In North America, the Toa Hordeca were introduced in the winter, and the Viscerac came out in the summer. But in Europe and Asia, it was flipped. Viscerac came in winter, and Toa Hordeca came in summer. So European kids met the villains before they'd been introduced to the heroes they were fighting. At least this time, the story was the same. But that same year, the Toa Haga figures, Norik and Iruini, were released in stores in Europe in the winter of 2005. In the US, they were only available as a Walmart exclusive special edition Guardian Toa bonus pack. So one part of the world could walk into any store and buy them, while the other had to go to Walmart specifically or completely miss out. But the thing is, Knights Kingdom 2 did something similar. The action figures, like set 8773, came with game cards in North America. The European version of the same figure came without cards. But then, Target stores in North America got a secret third variant, with 6 cards instead of the standard 3. But at least this was for a random theme no one remembers, right? Well, yes, but LEGO did it with Ninjago too. The Ninjago trading card game launched in 2016 through a company called Blue Ocean, and it's been running across Europe, Brazil, and Singapore ever since. Notice anything? Yeah, it's never been available in the United States or Canada. There are more than 10 series with hundreds of different cards, and American Ninjago fans have just never had access to it. But even within Europe, it wasn't consistent. The UK dropped it after Series 3, while Hungary kept getting English versions even after the UK stopped getting them. Certain limited edition cards were only distributed through specific products in specific countries. It's a whole complicated mess that honestly isn't even worth trying to figure out. But the LEGO architecture theme has a weird origin story that most people haven't heard. When Adam Reed Tucker launched the first architecture sets in 2008, the Sears Tower and the John Hancock Center, they were sold exclusively at the gift shops of those actual buildings in Chicago. You had to physically visit the John Hancock Center or the Sears Tower depending on which set you wanted. That's a level of location-based exclusivity that no one besides LEGO themselves even gets, like the sets in the LEGO house. And speaking of LEGO house, during COVID, LEGO put some of the house sets for sale online, but for some reason, they weren't available for everyone. The architecture set was available across Europe. The Tree of Creativity and the Dinosaurs sets were only in Denmark, the UK, and Ireland, because those were the only countries where the packaging met local regulation requirements. And get this, the US and Australia got nothing. Nothing? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to buy sets for retail price online that you can only get in person in one place. And for some reason, LEGO left out 2 gigantic markets. The problem is, this kind of thing goes all the way back to 1967. Set 080 was a town and train hybrid set that you could buy at any regular toy store in Europe. But in the US, the same exact set was sold exclusively at FAO Schwarz, the most expensive luxury toy store in America at the time. They even changed the name to the Ambassador set, when literally everything about them was the same. But in America, you had to be rich to buy it. And then there's the one that genuinely baffles people when they hear it. The LEGO Architecture White House set, released in 2020, launched in Europe and Asia before it was released in America. A set of the literal White House was available in Germany 2 months before you could buy it in the States. And apparently, the reason was because factories in Mexico were closing down due to COVID. Honestly, I hate how good of an excuse this is, because it really does make sense. But the brick architect said it best. It was a misguided decision to release a model featuring an iconic US landmark to a domestic audience 2 months later than it was released in Europe and Asia. But to finish the video, let me tell you about the Royal Guard minifigure. I think we can all agree that this is a cool minifigure, but if you want it, you have to go to Hamley's toy store in London to buy it. You literally can't get it anywhere else in the world unless you pay the resale price. Oh, and another thing, it hasn't been sold there since 2018, so you have to buy resale whether you like it or not. But which LEGO change around the world surprised you the most? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.